Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW. Let us surprise you.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
To this Wednesday edition of Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We are live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Lots to get to over the course of the next 2 hours, wherever you're watching or listening from. We appreciate it. Sirius XM Channel 158, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app. If you don't have the VSiN Watch app, you should, because then you can watch all of our shows on demand as well. How did you finish out the birthday festivities yesterday? Anything fun when you got home?
No, not at all, actually.
What?
Well, because the birthday, I work all week, so the celebrations are going to be held off until the weekend.
Okay,
stuff.
that's fair.
So, nothing really crazy. Just watched a lot of hoops, sat back, did some work. So we will wait to see what's going to happen this weekend.
I'm very proud of you for showing up to work yesterday. I don't know if I told you that, but I hate working on my birthday. You're
a taker-offer.
Yes, I am let me veg out on my couch and do nothing and have no responsibilities birthday person.
I would love to be that, but, sometimes you just asked. Yeah. You are asked to do many things. You have to wear many hats. It'll come. It'll come in the next couple of days.
We are in the middle of football season, whereas my birthday's in the summertime, so maybe it doesn't have the same
That's very true.
punch. That said, we got a lot to dive into over the course of the show. So let's set the table like we always do. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
All right, top items on deck today. Lots of NFL per usual coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll get into the need-to-know information. Jameis Winston getting the start for New York against the Packers with Jackson Dart in concussion protocol, seeing lots of side and total movement in that game. Lamar Jackson curiously absent at practice today. Plus, we'll get into some fantasy and prop angles as well when Kendall Valenzuela of Fantasy Life joins the program.
I mean, those two ones you mentioned, Jameis Winston starting and the impact with Jackson Dart's absence on the Rookie of the Year market, as well as the day after I decide to add the Ravens at 7-1 to win the AFC. Lamar Jackson, oddly enough, is not at practice. We should hear from Harbaugh coming up in a little bit. This is about the time he'll meet with the media, I believe. So if we get a little bit more information, hopefully by the time we talk about it. And hopefully it's just that he did so well the last 2 weeks, we gave him the day off. It's probably not.
I'm thinking he just, at least optimistically, took some hard hits in the game coming on Sunday and just want to give him one of those rest days to make sure he's at his best for you come Sunday. We will get into plenty of basketball today as well. I was going to say NBA, but we're actually doing NBA and college hoops today with some hardwood handicapping in honor of the podcast being back.
That's right. I will be on tomorrow with Zach, so looking forward to it. But speaking of, big news coming down in just a couple of minutes. Giannis Antetokounmpo was questionable. He's officially out. That was announced about 3 minutes ago. So our Hornets got a little bit of life today. Maybe we can grab a win here. They look pretty good. And when we talk about that game, we should talk a little bit about burgeoning Rookie of the Year candidate for the Charlotte Hornets. So very excited to talk about that. They got two really good rookies. But yes, looking forward to that. And as you mentioned, big performance from a young freshman last night for Louisville. So it was a big day in terms of results last night in a sneaky good college card. Not so much today when your highlight is Minnesota and Missouri.
I was watching I was at Sushi last night as I was watching the Louisville game. And I just kept, every time I looked up, I was like, man, they're really putting it on Kentucky right
they
now.
beat the pants off of them. Yeah. It was a good performance for Louisville. I think, a lot was thought of Kentucky coming into this year, and you can still achieve everything. But early goings, it's been, I think, a little shaky, especially when you consider the offseason, non-regular season matchup that we saw them lose to in their practice games. So we'll see if that matters. But Michael Brown Jr., the name that I'm referencing here, I don't know if you saw number 0 pop up every once in a while when you were watching for Louisville, but 29 points, 8 of 16 shooting. The kid was great, and it was a very good performance. There
was an injury coming out of the game. Louisville head coach Pat Kelsey went to the press conference with a splint on his finger because of the celebration.
Yep.
So there you go. First win out there for Louisville, and you celebrate the upset the way that you do. And unfortunately for the Louisville football program, their spot in the CFP rankings did take a hit after the loss to Cal this weekend, but the selection committee rankings in general is where we're going to kick things off here today. Not a lot of movement at the top JVT, which I think was to be expected, although there were some people that were trying to make the argument for Texas A&M to potentially leapfrog Indiana after We saw the Hoosiers have the close, near loss to Penn State, and Texas A&M getting the win the way they did against Missouri. But I think the committee kind of got it right here. I don't know how much credit you can give the Aggies for a win against a Missouri team that's without their starting quarterback, who is such a key cog for them. And Indiana ultimately getting the win in the fashion that they did. When you got to have it, they made the plays.
Yeah, I read some, I don't think maybe it wasn't pure surprise, but there was some of, the committee didn't decide to ding Indiana. I was like, I don't really think you should. I mean, look, it's college football. You're playing a conference road game. Those are going to be tough things to overcome on a week-to-week basis. All of these teams outside of Ohio State have had their moments where they've kind of had to deal with adversity and get through. So after what you're alluding to was a relatively quiet weekend amongst the top 10, you're going to see very little movement, and that's exactly what we saw. Now, the fringes, as we talked about, the group of 5, which we'll get into, some of the other teams on the outside looking in, the ACC with an odd name popping up, that's where you get a little bit of the movement. But all these teams took care of business last weekend for the most part.
Yes, and Texas Tech, following the big dominant win over BYU, they rise to number 6. Texas also moves into a safer spot at number 10. BYU, after the loss, drops to 12. So among the kind of top tier candidates, that's where we see our most movement. And the name you mentioned popping up a little bit, the Miami Hurricanes.
But they're not in. That's the weird thing. And I mean, they're in terms of these projected, the projected bracket. But they're on the outside looking into the ACC. They are not eliminated from ACC competition, but it is highly unlikely that they're going to find their way in an ACC championship game, which does kind of go to show. I mean, these rankings mean absolutely nothing if we're really going to put them in as part of the projected field, when the reality is they're not even in the running to win a one-bid league at this point right now.
Yes, and that's the thing, is one-bid league, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that really truly I mean, you would need a lot to go wrong for Miami to be able to get into this thing as an at-large. What I thought was interesting about this positioning, because Miami moves up from 18 to 15, was I think this is where they probably should have been a week ago. This is one, I don't know why a 38-10 win over Syracuse, who lost 6 straight by an average of more than 22 points, is going to move your needle up 3 spots, right? So to me, I think this is more of a makeup by the committee of, hey, they probably should have been boosted a little bit more than they were to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all meaningless though, right? Here's your meaningless number because you're not going to win your conference. I mean, I guess it puts you on life support for an at-large bid, like you said, if everything goes wrong in front of you. And I think that would mean absolutely everything. Notre Dame losing, we can go through the list of what we need for Miami to happen. To me, I think outside of the ACC, so there's 2 things. First off, with the ACC, it just confirms what we talked about yesterday. It's a one-bid league. So again, I am surprised to see these small differences in when the ACC make the college football playoff odds for some of these teams in that.
For a lot of them. Yeah,
if you win the ACC, you're into the college football playoff. There is no room for the at-large there for any of these teams to get back in. The other is, I'm going to be wrong. Good thing we didn't do a show bet on this, and I think you're going to be right. The door is wide open for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in. With Texas Tech being as high as they are, if they move on to a Big 12 championship game and then they lose to, let's say, a BYU, those are 2 teams that could theoretically still stay inside. And the loser of that one would assume it's Texas Tech, because I don't think if you lose twice to Texas Tech, BYU would not be able to get into the college football playoff. That Texas Tech would still slip, but not far enough to fall out of the picture. Yeah,
I was on BYU TV Sports Nation earlier this morning, and we were talking about if BYU would be a team that could get in as an at-large, and I just don't think so, unless you win out and you're in the Big 12 title game rematch with Texas Tech, and it's an unbelievable game, and you show you're a completely different team than the one you played when they were had college game day there and everything. It's a field goal loss or whatever it is. I think that's the only way you get in. The best opportunity for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in is for BYU and Texas Tech to play that game and for BYU to win, because I do think Texas Tech, having the resume that they have and their only regular season loss being to an ASU team without your starting quarterback in Baron Morton, is going to get you there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was just laughing. Every time we talk about these rankings, it feels like the Always Sunny thing, right? We have the big board and you have all the red string, and you're just
for Charlie Day, 100%.
Manically explaining how each and every single one of these teams can actually make it into a college football playoff if this and this goes right.
I keep wondering if Utah has any outside shot. If, let's say, Texas Tech beats BYU in the Big 12 title game, in especially the same fashion or similar fashion, where it's by 2 scores or more, whatever it is, but Utah from an eye test perspective, a metrics perspective, they get the respect with the head coach and Kyle Whittingham, how good the defense is, the offensive line. I think that there's a better perception about Utah, if they're able to handle business down the stretch here, if that might improve their shot at not large. I don't know, but at 13, obviously right now, after the bye, they're on the outside looking in. The Big Ten third spot is what I find very intriguing because I think it's pretty obvious that Ohio State and Indiana are going to be in there.
Yeah. We're assuming Indiana's not losing until the Big Ten championship game, if they do.
Correct. So one of those teams is going to lose, but it's going to be in a title game. Oregon currently resides in that third Big Ten position as the number 8 ranked team in the country. They've got a head-to-head with USC coming up next week. They barely squeaked out the win against Iowa. It is set up if they win these games that they'll be in. But USC has Iowa this week. They've got Oregon next week and UCLA to close out the season, which they should win. Who do you think would be the better bet if you had to make one? USC, Oregon, Michigan to get into the college football playoff.
I mean, I would assume it's one of Oregon or USC.
Me too.
As you mentioned,
I kind of like the shot on USC.
Yeah, like they're going to play each other, as you mentioned, so like that will help. One of them will have that pelt on their wall. For USC, it's a similar situation to Oregon. They get Iowa, but they get them at home as opposed to Oregon having to go out there on the road. And then you wrap with UCLA. I mean, look, as we know, the Bruins have been plucky, and maybe in a rivalry spot that's a lot more dangerous than you initially think it is. But the favorite would be, I would believe, one of those two teams. Because if you're Michigan, don't you need one of those two teams to lose twice? You need them to lose the USC or Oregon matchup, and then you need to lose one more.
I think with Michigan, even as a 2-loss regular season team, if you beat Ohio State in the regular season finale, which they have shown to do in the past, and they have the historic resume of having just played for a national title 2 years ago, I think they get like a little benefit of the doubt type thing from the selection committee. So there's and I don't know if Michigan's capable of that. Quite frankly, I don't, so I wouldn't want to bet them. But USC, I think, is very, very live, and they're not being talked about in the Big Ten as much as they should.
North Texas, too. I mean, the American, like, with that being ranked.
We didn't even get into the G5 element of it, which is another huge layer. We do have, by the way, as another preview for what's to come today, West Coast bias on a Wednesday. So we'll talk about that USC-Iowa game and more in a bit. But when we come back, shifting gears to the NFL, some big news items and quarterbacks coming down.
DSW, birthplace of the humble brag. Here, the shoes are so good, no one would ever know how little you paid. If you didn't go telling everyone, that is. And with never-ending options for every style, mood, and occasion, all at really great prices. We'll definitely give you something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands. Or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Before the line moves, remember the sharp plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they help move it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sports books or full-time sharps on your own, but with the sharp plays, you don't have to. Powered by advanced AI, plugged into trusted insider sources, and active across the NFL, NBA, college hoops, and more, the sharp plays delivers the edge serious bettors use each and every day. You get free betting reports, real-time alerts, market-moving insights, all sent straight to your inbox or X feed. And since 2011, the sharp plays has been delivering these documented results, public logs. They have transparent receipts, the whole bit. Sharpplays.com, trusted by the pros, watched by the books. Head over to sharpplays.com to stay ahead of the line. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves, diving into a little NFL talk where, as Adam Schefter put it on X, Lamar Jackson watch is back on as he was not out there on the practice field today. Jamison Hensley, one of the Baltimore Ravens beat reporters on site, said the injury report will come out later today, but he finished Sunday's win at Minnesota with some hard hits, so potentially just a rest day, but we'll find out more information on that a little bit later. Does that raise your level of concern at all for this week? I know it already does for your futures ticket.
I mean, I guess.
I don't want to go like too deep and like, oh no, this is terrible when we're not sure.
No, and given where they're at, so they get Cleveland this week. They're 7.5-point favorites. One would assume they're still a very short favorite if Lamar doesn't play. Like, if there was a game to miss, would it be against Cleveland? I mean, you can make the argument that that's the case, especially if your defense is really improving the way that it's shown in the last few games. So if there was a time where he would have a bump or a bruise that would cause him to potentially miss a game, but they would still maintain this run they could potentially be on, it would be this week. But obviously you don't like it, considering what he's had to deal with. And we just don't know what it is. Is it a hard contact injury? Is it another soft tissue injury? That is going to be the most impactful. If it's one of those like hard contact, just needs some time off sort of deals, then yes. But if it's one that is soft tissue that's affecting his mobility, the way he can move, then that's obviously a really big issue.
Let's all cross our fingers that it's just a rest day, knowing that you're going to be playing a really good defense coming up this week in Cleveland. The spread, Baltimore laying 7.5, low total 39.5 in that one in Cleveland. So we'll keep tabs on it as we see the injury report a little bit later. We do know we're getting a quarterback change for sure with the New York Giants this week. Jackson Dart, Mike Kafka already on the podium today saying that Jackson Dart's going to be in the concussion protocol, so they're going with Winston over Russell Wilson, which I do think is a little bit interesting. You?
I mean, is he going to make them better? There is a wide belief that he's just going to make New York better, or I think we just like Jameis Winston and choose to ignore the flaws.
And granted, I don't know what's going on in the locker room, but from all reports, the team really likes Jameis as well. And I don't want to say that as a knock to Russell Wilson because I don't know how he's been received in the Giants locker room. But I know Jameis, there's a lot of reports how beloved and well-liked he is.
I mean, if you're not – look, Russell Wilson has not been good. So I guess in any sense, it's just trying something different is going to help you out. One of the ways, and we've talked about this, Green Bay and their slippage down the standings. I've mentioned just like overall expected points added that they slipped to the middle of the pack. One of the big issues has been their pass defense. They're now 17th in expected points added per pass on defense. So if you have a more aggressive quarterback that's willing to stretch the field and test a defense that has not been particularly great, then I guess that makes some sense. But remember, you're also beat up at the skill positions. Like your quarterback's down. We know about Neighbors, obviously, more than a month ago. Scadaboo. So, you're talking about a pretty thin group overall. How much does Jameis really raise that? But the question also becomes, do you trust Green Bay given the slide that we have seen from this team? Well,
and that's what I was going to say is, I mean, even when you just look at the numbers and how they've changed, not just based on Jackson Dart, but the performance we saw from the Green Bay Packers, they were 8.5-point favorites in this game prior to Monday night. We're now seeing that number as 7 in New York against the Giants. The total was 46.5. That's down to 43.5 now. So lots of movement on this thing. I think with Jameis, it's boom or bust potential, right?
Sure.
Like, are we betting over 1.5 touchdowns and over an interception or over 1.5 interception? Like, how do you play it? There's a lot of different angles, I think, potentially with him involved. I don't think there's really any question that that's something that you're looking at here with Jameis Winston. I mean, he's been called. I say boom or bust, but it's boom and bust in the same game. I mean, as he's been called the greatest, the most entertaining quarterback in the National Football League, and that is the case. I mean, you talk about, so for his career, this will give you an idea, average depth of target of nearly 11 yards downfield, and a turnover-worthy play rate of 4.7%. So, we're chucking, and we know what it is. We're chucking YOLO balls. We're seeing what we can do. Last year with Cleveland, 329 dropbacks for the Cavaliers, for the Browns. Turnover-worthy play rate of 5.2% for Jameis Winston. That's a really high mark for those who don't understand, the context of which that number is. And if you look, now it's very small sample sizes for a couple of these, but just over the last 3 years, Stormy, you're talking about a turnover-worthy play rate well over 5%. That stretched over his few snaps in New Orleans and Cleveland last year. It's going to be pretty chaotic. We know exactly what that is. Yep. We were pretty critical coming out of the Monday night game about what we saw from Green Bay, specifically on offense and Jordan Love. But with that, after the game, Matt LaFleur was getting peppered with some questions as well about his role in that, obviously, as the offensive voice, and whether or not he is on the hot seat. Take a listen.
I'll leave that for everybody else to decide. I'll just focus on the day-to-day and trying to do – I feel like you're always coaching for everything in this league. That's just my mindset. That's always been that way. You can't ever exhale. You got to always be pushing, and that's just my mindset. So, and that will be my mindset until they tell me not to coach anymore.
I think that's the perfect way to field that question. It's a great answer. Yeah, 100%. And look, I don't think anybody realistically believes he's on the hot seat. He's done a great job there. So you're just going with the coach answer of, yeah, sure, every day I do. I mean, the real thing is going to be, with this offensive line, Jordan Love's been protected pretty well. He's floating around 18th in terms of total dropbacks.
under pressure. So that's good in terms of 18th fewest. So he's been doing a really good job, and he's been protected. But as we have discussed, he has not done well under pressure, and this is a pretty good defensive line. Abdul Carter leads rookies when you're talking about total pressures. We know how strong the rest of this line can potentially be. I think that's where it might be won or lost here. Mm-hmm. If you can get to him, if you can pressure him and make him feel that pressure, which he has clearly had some issues with, then this Giants group that's been pretty plucky from a spread standpoint. Now, a lot of that has been Dart, too, but this Giants team at least has shown a little bit more cohesiveness, I guess, some more consistency that has allowed you to kind of look at them a little bit more often.
And do you get the interim coach bump?
Yeah.
That's always the question.
That's what you always say, right?
Yep.
The fallen coach, not the fallen coach, but like, the fired coach theory.
Yeah.
Maybe guys are now a little bit more focused on what's going to happen here. Who knows?
Also, just a quick update, although this is something that we expected and have talked about the last 2 days this week, C.J. Stroud is still in the concussion protocol as well, was not out there on the practice field today. Texans still laying 6.5, with it likely being Davis Mills on Sunday at Tennessee. Low total in that one at 37.5. Also,
that's it real quick.
Sure.
I mean, you say it was expected. There's a lot of places that were sitting at 7 when that news came down, and then they knocked it off the key number. So at the very least, it was worth moving off of the key number to a lot of these books. Now we'll see, because some of them are still juiced to the favorite side. Like Circa moved off 7, but it's 6.5 minus 115. But at the very least, some shops dictated that was enough to at least move off of 7.
And then as the Arizona Cardinals play host to the 49ers this weekend, they're going to have to do so down. There's a couple key cogs in the wide receiver room. We learned earlier this week that Zay Jones was going to be done for the season. And then you get the news this morning, Marvin Harrison Jr. needed emergency surgery for an appendectomy today. And he's going to be out for at least this week, if not longer.
Yeah, I mean, for the 49ers, obviously the 8th seed right now. So you're trying to maintain pace and hopefully trying to put a little bit of pressure on Green Bay. And for Arizona, I mean, you do wonder. Jacoby Brissett turns back into a pumpkin. The offense looks awful. This is now the start of you sitting on an under on a win total. You're feeling pretty good because this might be the start of falling off the cliff.
I wasn't going to say anything,
right.
But in my brain,
I'll say it for you. At least you're feeling good, is what I'm saying. You're not guaranteeing it for you.
Those are some words I've used on Sundays that have backfired. So I specifically was not wanting to verbalize.
You've been a little bit more strong in your declarations of things being over. We'll have to play the clip. Both
roll it. No. But with Brissett, at least, Marvin Harrison Jr. had been able to pop a little bit, so I think that's particularly disappointing in this one. And while we are getting injury updates there, we're not going to have enough time to play the clip here, but we're not getting injury updates with the Jets anymore, apparently, according to Aaron Glenn, who, if you haven't seen this, and maybe we can play this clip a little bit later, Aaron Glenn was asked to get some injury updates, and the question was framed around the report from Rich Cimini of ESPN with Garrett Wilson being out expected 3 to 4 weeks or so, and he was like, I'm going to pass on talking about injuries. You can ask Rich.
Yeah.
And there's trying to follow up, well, we want to hear from you. Rich knows everything. Rich wasn't even there.
Not really great.
Rich wasn't even there.
Not really great for Glenn. Seems to be kind of falling apart here a little bit. You talk about not being able to handle any sort of just pressure and the way he's been acting. It's been
a little erratic.
Well, yes, that's a good word for it. Very erratic. He was ready to dance the other day, and still.
You'd think he'd be happier. They're coming off back-to-back wins.
How can you win? How can you make the mistake and win those games?
It's crazy.
I think you'd fire him for winning the game.
What I always come back to in the things like this when they're mad at reporters about information they get, I texted you about this yesterday, is shouldn't you be more upset in the building that you have people that give out this information, that you have leaks, versus the reporter for getting their sources when that's their job is to find them? Neither here nor there. We've got to step aside. When we come back, A.J. Brown said something very interesting about fantasy. Next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. In case you missed it, last night on a Twitch stream, A.J. Brown comes out here and says, if you've got me in fantasy, man, get rid of me. So who better to ask the fantasy questions to than our girl Kendall Valenzuela, who joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, senior analyst at Fantasy Life, SiriusXM Fantasy Channel 87. You can also catch her on X at KValenzuela17. So should we be getting rid of A.J. Brown, Kendall? That is the question.
I don't know, Stormy, he could have told me this like 6 weeks ago. It would have done me a lot more good in my fantasy leagues. Like, here's the thing. I think, like, going forward, you can find my rankings at fantasylife.com, and mine are 100% free. I'm ranking Devontae Smith ahead of him the rest of the way because it's just a roller coaster. And Devontae Smith has just had a better season, and he's just a better fantasy starter at this point. I don't even think that's a hot take. If you have A.J. Brown, the difficult decision that you have to make is, do I have a better potential starter than him? Now, I've moved him down my rankings. Like, he's going to be wide receiver in the range of probably wide receiver 17 this week, 15 to 17. And I really doubt that sometimes I looked through my lineups, I don't have better options than one A.J. Brown. You're going to get spike weeks and you're going to get more low weeks, it feels like. But this feels like at least a good enough week where maybe it's a squeaky wheel game. They hear him on Twitch. They say, okay, we've got a pretty high team total this week. We're playing a really good team in the Lions. They're tough against the run, so we can expect maybe Saquon Barkley to have a little bit of a down game here. So A.J. Brown, please, just like give us fantasy points, take us to the fantasy playoffs. But it's not great. I'm just hoping it's a squeaky wheel game.
All right, so what do we do with Jacksonville? I'm curious. We get the official news that Travis Hunter is going to be done, but we know that I think BTJ returned to practice today. So how do we handle what Jacksonville's looking at?
Washington, right? That's the guy that you would say, okay, Brian Thomas Jr., what am I looking at here? I'm honestly a little bit more bullish than others on Parker Washington. I think that if you have him, even going into this week, you have to downgrade your expectations a little bit, but I still think he's a viable flex option because I don't know if Jacoby Myers is going to be fully up to speed with this offense yet. I think he gets another week closer, but I mean, the connection with Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence hasn't been good this season, and it's been a mixture of the chemistry and BTJ just doesn't look like himself. Like he's scared to take those hits. He's had the wrist injury before. He's coming off this next injury. So to me, I think if you're in a position where you have Parker Washington and your other flex players aren't as good, we got a question today about like Nick Chubb, who's banged up, you're going to go with Parker Washington. And so I'm actually a little bit more okay with him this week than some of my other rankers at fantasylife.com. But you just have to lower expectations because you know he's not going to be the full-on blown out wide receiver one like we saw last week with Brian Thomas coming back.
The Arizona Cardinals can't seem to catch a break either when it comes to some of their talented players going down. And this week, Marvin Harrison Jr., we just found out, had the emergency appendectomy, so he's going to be unavailable this week. Zay Jones is done for the rest of the year. Who's the next man up in the Cardinals wide receiver room that maybe could get some looks this week for those people that are looking in the prop market or fantasy as well?
Yeah, I think, first of all, they really can't catch a break. And I'd be careful. I said this today. Marvin Harrison Jr., they say he's out this week. Be prepared to be without him for at least two, because I don't think that's an easy procedure. I haven't had it done, but that's not an easy procedure for anyone, I think, to be able to just say, oh, okay, a week later, I'm good to go and ready to play. So if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., err on the side of caution and just be prepared to be without him for maybe 2 weeks. Now, the other side of this is that it's Trey McBride's world, and we're just going to live in it. And so I hope that man gets peppered with targets. But the next two guys up would be Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. I lean towards Michael Wilson, and I will say could be totally wrong on that. They could look at Greg Dortch this week and say, you know what, we're going to give you a little bit more, but I'm going to have Michael Wilson ranked higher going into this week. And again, the matchup's not bad, going up against this 49ers team. So I'm looking at them and I'm saying, okay, they have to throw the ball somewhere. Looks like they're going to be without Trey Benson for yet another week. So Amari DiMercato is still a bit interesting to me, but if you're looking for wide receivers, it would be Michael Wilson for me to start, and then Greg Dortch if you're in really one of those deeper 14-team, 16-team leagues.
All right, two parts here. First off, Tyler Warren and the Colts are on a bye. So if you've got Tyler Warren, you've been playing him every single week. Where are you looking at tight end? And just not even a question. Shout out to you. You called out Alec Pierce when you were with us last week, had a big game, and it looks like he is very much going to be a high volume of targets with the addition, or of course, the subtraction of A.D. Mitchell and how that looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, thanks. Alec Pierce, like I said it this week too, if someone for whatever reason, and I've seen it already, people drop players that are on a bye sometimes and they just don't even think about it. If Alec Pierce gets dropped this week because he's on a bye, pick him up because it's just, I don't think it's going to go away. I think his target share is really nice. He's just got a really good route participation rate. Everything is really good for Alec Pierce this week. And then the first part of your question, I will say, and it's kind of gross, but I'm looking at one Pat Freiermuth because we always like to pick on teams that face the Cincinnati Bengals. And so that this week is going to be the Steelers. And again, it's pretty gross, but the Bengals are really bad against tight ends. So I think Pat Freiermuth could have a really good day this week. I've also mentioned and written up before, but you can check my waiver wire article at fantasylife.com. I wrote up, Theo Johnson, I think, is available. He's rostered in 40% of leagues, so he could be another one. Another deep sleeper could be one Dawson Knox as well. He's only 1% rostered just because we saw, the injuries to the Bills kind of pop up again. So those could be a couple guys, but I'm going with Freiermuth this week.
You mentioned Theo Johnson. How do you feel about things now with Jameis Winston being the passer and Jackson Dart taking a seat this week?
No, we love it. They love fun. They're going to lose, but they're going to lose in a fun way. We love Jameis. Give me Jameis Winston every day of the week for fantasy football for us, because that means we get the YOLO balls. I think Theo Johnson's obviously in play. You're starting Wan'Dale Robinson, and I think Darius Slayton is going to come down with a big day too. Here's the thing. He's going to make mistakes. You're not going out and getting Jameis Winston and starting him this week and saying to yourself, this is great, I'm so happy. But based on what we've seen with Russell Wilson before, he definitely capped your fantasy football teams and your players that you played with the Giants. Now that we have Jameson Williams, it's just going to be YOLO. The ADOT is going to explode for some of these guys. I'm thinking more Slate in there. And I think all three of those guys, you have to be way more excited to start them this week. So I'm there. They're going to lose, but at least they'll lose having fun with Jameis Winston.
The last couple of weeks, Green Bay Packers have kind of been, I think we made the comp yesterday. It's like a teen learning how to drive stick, right? Just like stuck in neutral all over the place, herky-jerky. What do you do with some of these guys? Is there somebody worth adding as this wide receiver group, of course, every single week seems to have a bunch of dudes listed as questionable?
Yeah, I would. The one that I'm comfortable with is Christian Watson. I think Christian Watson, first of all, he came back way earlier than I expected. I thought we were going to be at a mid-December timeline. So for him to be able to come back is really big for this team. Romeo Doubs is banged up with the chest injury. We'll have to wait and see if he's good to go this week. And then, of course, Tucker Kraft. I think that's going to be a really big loss to this team the rest of the way. Like, we knew that Tucker Kraft was really good and he was a huge part of this offense, but we kind of saw it in that horrible game that we had to watch, that it was a little bit bigger than expected. So I think Christian Watson, he's only 31% rostered. If he is available, he would be the guy that I want to go and get out of this offense. Because again, you really like the route participation rate. He had 79% and then 112 air yards. So he's still involved. He's in the mix. I think if this team needs anyone to step up, it's probably going to be him. And especially the rest of the way, they have a really nice fantasy schedule. They face like the Giants, the Lions, the Bears twice in weeks 14 and 16, and then they have the Ravens in week 17, which is usually when the fantasy playoff championships are. So he would definitely be the guy to take a look at.
If someone out there needed a little quarterback help this week, are you targeting the bad defenses?
Someone?
Just a question, not a selfish one, just a question.
No,
would it be worth grabbing an Aaron Rodgers potentially this week because of how bad the Bengals defense is, or should we be staying away?
No, funny enough, I wrote him up, and it's gross. Like, you're not going to love it. You're going to feel pretty gross with yourself. But I think Aaron Rodgers is my top guy. I was going back and forth between him. I think for my rankings, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, J.J. McCarthy if he's still out there, and then Tua Tagovailoa, which, again, all really gross. But Aaron Rodgers has the Bengals this week, and like you said, they just give up fantasy points like it's their job. So I think Aaron Rodgers is a really good person to look at. I think we just have to throw away and hope that we don't get the Aaron Rodgers that we saw in week 10. But yeah, he's definitely going to be my top guy, especially going into this week. I'm going to pick on anyone that faces the Bengals and the Cowboys most of the time.
McCarthy, is that an anti-Chicago angle, but using JJ?
Yeah, and it's an idea that maybe he is able to just continue to improve. Like, I really hope, as someone that has a good amount of Justin Jefferson on their teams, that he's able to connect with him more so. But again, McCarthy is a viable option with this matchup more specifically. And I just think that he's still able to put together fantasy points. We know he can, use his legs a little bit more. I'm just thinking as the weeks progress that I'm hoping he gets better. And I think that this is a matchup that he can exploit a little bit.
Kendall, great stuff as always. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
We'll have Kendall on again next week, same time, same place. You can check her out on SiriusXM channel 87 as well, and again on X at @Valenzuela17.
Did you get the answer you're looking for?
Just looking. I was just saying. I know he had a couple turnovers in that previous meeting with the Bengals, but it was a 4-touchdown day, 250 yards.
What do you think I asked her
Bounce
about?
back performance.
What do you think I asked her about replacements for for Warren. Come on, I need to find something.
Listen, and if you guys at home, if you ever have any questions in the future, tweet them in.
Yeah,
you know Kendall's coming on
We'll
Tuesdays. We want to help you out.
Wednesdays,
excuse me. See, it's football season. It all blurs together. Waiver wire Wednesdays.
Yep.
Hello. We've got to step aside when we come back. Getting into a little hockey. Short card today, just 4 games, but a lot of potential options on it. Time to puck around and find out after this.
DSW, birthplace of the humble brag. Here, the shoes are so good, no one would ever know how little you paid. If you didn't go telling everyone, that is. And with never-ending options for every style, mood, and occasion, all at really great prices. We'll definitely give you something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands. Or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Time to puck around and find out. Going to dive into the 4-game NHL card as we welcome you back to this Wednesday edition of Money Moves, live on Sirius XM, channel 158. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. The short cards are good for me. Because, I've got bandwidth issues right now. So 4 cards,
I feel
pretty good about it. Listen,
all right, well, you got this. I'll see you in 10 minutes.
So aren't you supposed to do what I do to you during NBA segments?
Which is just ask you questions and then
just
sit
say,
back and do nothing?
So here's a game, Stormy.
Yeah. All right, fine. I will say there is a game on here that you have included, and I know it's your best bet, but it has intrigued me nonetheless as to what you're going to do here. Edmonton. I love when people do that on shows, by the way. When people make a strong point and the host or somebody goes, yeah. Edmonton. $1.35. You can find $1.27 on the road against Philadelphia. Rocky start for the Oilers.
Yes. But
they have, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, they have a tendency for slow starts, right? To a regular season?
Not this bad.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. So, how much of this is worry? How much of this is, hey, man, we've had a couple of playoff runs. This is going to be something that's going to happen. But against Philadelphia, wow, $1.35, considering the disappointing start. Has the market adjusted enough here on Edmonton?
So I laid it today.
There we go.
Which I think, you're being generous saying it's been a rocky start. It's been bad. It's been an ugly start for the Oilers.
Full disclosure, I have not. I'm looking at them from a surface level standpoint.
Yes.
So, the intricacies of how bad it is, I don't want to overstate that. So I'd rather be a little tepid with the analysis.
I think it's one of those things where, and they have had some injuries that. This is a team that the depth has not shown up, and they've been exposed a little bit in that early on. And a lot of what you said is true too, right? The back-to-back to trying to do another deep playoff runs, making it to the Cup final 2 years in a row. There is something to that for the slow start, maybe, but I think health is a big part of it. And you're like, okay, well, right now all you're saying is that this team is terrible. Why are you laying a number with them on the road? I'm going to take a little walk down narrative street here a little bit, coming off of what was a dramatic comeback overtime win for the Oilers the other day. I think there's potential for the way they rallied in that game and being able to get off the mat, that maybe you can create a little momentum for yourself from game to game, like McDavid putting the team on his back to score 2 third-period goals, including I don't know if even you saw the highlight of this, the spinorama backhand was one of the coolest highlights.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to look it up in the commercial break coming up here. But you get a shorty from Jake Wallman. Roslovic wins it in overtime. I think after the shellacking they took against Colorado, they demanded more from themselves, and they got it late in that game. And so maybe there can be a little bit of carryover. And pairing that with, I'm just not a believer in the Flyers. And I've said that on the show before, too. I don't think that they're as good as their record would indicate right now. They are not a good scoring team, bottom 6 in the NHL. And for as good as they've been keeping the puck out of the net, Edmonton's talent head-to-head offensively is just a different animal. They're the 3rd best power play in the league. Flyers are the 2nd most penalty minutes in the league, which I think also kind of bumps their PK numbers to an extent. And I think could get them in trouble here against the Oilers. So I'm taking a shot on the short favorite price for Edmonton, that they're going to get on a little bit more of a positive track.
Yeah, as somebody who doesn't really watch a ton, my analysis kind of boils down to is looking at them from their statistical profiles. And one thing that sticks out about Philly is, to your point, they are up on the upside in terms of high danger chances allowed and then for. They have had more high danger chances for themselves despite losing out on the shot share for the season at even strength. So like that, to me, screams you can't keep doing that.
Yep.
But the other part of this is Edmonton's given up like nearly 150 high danger chances. And that goes back to the very base knowledge that I can recall from is that this has kind of been an issue for Edmonton throughout this sort of iteration of this team.
The
and it
blue
seems to be
line
the
and
problem.
goaltending has been a problem for them for a long time, so I don't think that's something you wouldn't have expected coming into this year.
All right, let me see. I know you only have one bet, but can I ask you why the line move here in this Rangers and Lightning game?
So there's a few things, and it has been a significant move. So this opened minus 163.
Yep.
And you can find as low as minus 130 in the market right now at South Point. Like those,
I've got circa minus 126. So,
oh wow, okay. So yeah, those plus money prices on the Rangers are getting gobbled up here after they finally did it. JVT, by the way, I know they're on the road for this game in Tampa, but they finally got the monkey off their back and won a game on home ice the other day. It was against the Preds, who are like second fewest points and second worst goal differential in the league. So like it's against a bad team, but they got it off their back and maybe they can create a little positivity here. The Lightning also are dealing with some injuries. Victor Hedman's day-to-day with an undisclosed injury. Defenseman Anthony Cirelli and Ryan McDonough also banged up. McDonough for sure out a few games. Haven't seen an update for tonight on Cirelli, but I think that's a layer to it. And the Rangers, quite frankly, as we make the jokes about how they've played at home, have been really good on the road. 8-7-2 for the season, 7-1-1 on the road tonight. And also, so I don't have a bet on this game, but I think I get some of the love for the Rangers. I don't know if I get this significant of a move on it personally. And the total was something that was up in the air for me as well. It's 5.5, slightly juiced to the over. There are some 6s out there that are juiced the other way. If Andrei Vasilevsky and Igor Shesterkin play to the levels that they're capable of, this screams under game, especially with the injuries, as I mentioned there with the Lightning. But if they don't, which we haven't really seen, especially with Igor Shesterkin, Vazzy has at least dialed it in a little bit since the rocky start for him, then I think it would be an over game. So I'm just staying off of both sides and seeing how this one plays out tonight.
So before the season started, what was the expectation for New York?
For the Rangers?
Yeah.
We had Jonathan Davis on the program talking about how much he liked their chances this year and thought they were going to be a very capable playoff team.
So again, to bring this up and boiling them down to just the numbers that we see at even strength, which is when you play most of your hockey, it would dictate that they've played a lot better than what their record says. They've slipped out to like 30-1 to win the Stanley Cup. Is that worth adding?
Probably. I mean, I am not a big Rangers person, and coming into the year, they weren't a team that I thought was a bet on.
Sure.
But I've actually, eye test-wise, liked a lot of their game more than I have disliked it. I'm probably not going to add it to the portfolio, but at that number, I wouldn't fault somebody who would. And if you had that preconceived notion coming into the year, for sure.
Because I need another.
You're looking for a team. That could be good because I'm not a big Eastern Conference person. Mm-hmm. So if you want to have another Eastern Conference team to watch, and then we can compare notes, that would be good.
Because my Austin Matthews stuff is definitely not going to get there. I think I've got over points, and I've got what's their MVP? What's the trophy?
The Hart Trophy.
Yeah, the Hart Trophy. That's not going. That
he got injured, by the way. Yeah.
So I'm cooked.
Yeah, I wouldn't say cooked.
I think I'm cooked. But I want to add a few. I need like a Stanley Cup winner. And again, every bit of the Rangers profile would suggest that they're like expected goals for. They have a massive edge in their favor. High danger chances generated at even strength. Massive edge in their favor. They've won the shot share at even strength so far this year. All of that would not tell me that this should be a team that is 8-7-2 and kind of barely getting by.
Yeah, again, it's just so weird how they've been at MSG. So hopefully now they've kind of broken the curse with that win over the Islanders and just can kind of. Win over the Predators and can just move on after that.
Anything in the last two? Big favorites for both of them. Utah's nearly a $2 favorite, and then you got a $1.60 price on New Jersey on the road.
I am not running to lay $2 with the Utah Mammoth, who have lost 5 of their last 6 games, their lone win being in overtime against Buffalo in a 2-1 game.
So how bad is Buffalo?
Buffalo's bad.
Okay.
Look at both of these teams. Sabres have dropped 6 of their last 7. Mammoth have lost 5 of their last 6. Utah's skid has largely come on the road. It's been a tough trip for them. I think 8 of their last 9 games have been away from Delta Center. So they're back home. They're rested. I could see a lot of goals being scored in this potentially, and some early scoring angles, which apparently I wasn't alone in that thought process, though, because some of the prices are just too big. Like goal in the first 10, minus 160. First period, over 1.5, minus 140. I did contemplate both teams to score at plus 155, but didn't ultimately get there. And then in Devils Blackhawks, New Jersey, big road favorite here over minus 150 price. Total here, mostly 6. I see some 6.5s out there as well, including, that's a different graphic. But yeah, there are some 6.5s here. Blackhawks riding a little bit of a heater. They dropped the first 3 games of their road trip and then won the next 3. Outscoring, by the way, Vancouver, Calgary, and Detroit 14-3 in those 3 games. New Jersey, I typically would like in a bounce back spot, but I would prefer to back them at home versus on the road. So where I ended up falling was looking at, and maybe by the end of the show I'll have a best bet on this. I want to back Connor Bedard in some way, shape, or form. He has been awesome to start the season. The over 1.5 points is plus 185. He's 20 years old and 4th in the league this season in points. Great vision. Just the assist prop as well, minus 115. He's had at least 1 in 7 straight games, 11 total in that stretch. 3 straight multi-point games, had 2+ points in 4 of the last 6. The shots on goal were a little too juiced for me at minus 165 over the 2.5, but I would be shocked if he didn't get at least 3. Could also pair him potentially if you want to do like a point parlay with Tyler Bertuzzi. 4 of his 6 assists last 3 games have gone to Bertuzzi, who has also been on a heater. So a few different angles there. I just got to decide how I want to fire on it. By the way, as we're diving into all of our different angles to bet hockey, ProfitX is changing the game for sports betting regardless of sport. Get a 20% deposit match up to $100 on your first purchase, plus 0% commission on player props and 1% on everything else. Plus, every $50 you wager on parlays in November gets you an entry to win a $500 restaurant gift card of your choice with drawings every Tuesday. Real markets, real prices, no house edge. Download ProfitX now. Use our code VSIN to get started. That's VSIN. Resetting hour 2 of the program when we come back here. Shifting from the ice to the hardwood. Going to dive into a little NBA talk after this. Stick around.